that.
So we say last time to speak up if anybody needs this to be in English.
Please do it in English.
Okay, good. So just a sound check that you hear me and also that you see what I'm now sharing while it's loading up. Some thumbs up.
Sounds good, and we see the screen.
Perfect. So my name is Mats Mudigunda Lundbäck, and I'm heading up strategic programs at Telia. And I will give you a bit of the bigger context on what we are doing in the 5G space, mainly from the B2B perspective, and then hand over to Thomas, who's then talking more about how we're doing stuff and how you can work with us and give example of that. So the topic for the day was how can transport industry benefit from 5G networks deployed? And starting what we are doing as Telia then, I was in the big event in Lindholmen, talking about that we're now launching the real public 5G network in Lindholmen now during the autumn, and that has then happened since then. I think that was 2 months ago. And I will give you a bit of examples then on what we're doing in terms of the big public 5G rollout, and then there's a lot of activities happening around that, and in addition to that public 5G rollout as well. But more or less, over time, 100% of the Telia networks in the Nordic Baltic space will be 5G. And we're working according to a 5-year plan, which started, I would say, 2019 and 2020, but from the kind of the big public rollout where we make a forklift of the existing networks to become 5G capable, are also working with different types of partner programs, test beds, innovation projects, different technology tests. And that also has led us to new types of dedicated networks. If you talk publicly, it's sometimes mentioned as private networks, but we also at Telia has the capability of delivering these types and different variants of private networks, which we then call dedicated networks or enterprise mobile networks. And I come back a bit why we see that. Working at Telia, we have more or less all public entities and enterprises and individuals as target customers, and that with a multi-purpose network like 5G, it gives also that we're working with a lot of different industries, but we see that transport and logistics as one of the leading industries for the 5G development, which will put the requirements and demands on us in what type of connectivity that we need to deliver now and in the future. Yeah, it's also used for normal broadband services. I will not talk at all about that, I would say, but we have that as well as a big area for focus then to complement the fiber access and fiber rollout that has happened in our footprint lately, so that everyone in the end can get a high quality broadband access as well. And also in the context that we're working with a lot of these industries that we are working with are global players. There's a key that everything that we do in terms of 5G services in the end becomes internationally harmonized, so that there is, if you have 5G services in our footprint, it should also work in rest of Europe and hopefully also globally. There are different levels of global harmonization ongoing there, and that's also something that will evolve over time, and it's very important for us as Telia then to get our customers' feedback and different industries' feedback in terms of needs there. 5G, we have been on a journey with starting with 1G up to now 5G over the last I would say 30 years, and what then 5G gives us is I mean, there are kind of three things that are mainly talked about as key things, but from that everything that is already there is becoming better, and that is the massive deployment of different types of connectivity, going from mobile phones and laptops being connected into the IoT space, where we talk about millions and trillions of devices, and maybe not trillions of connected devices. And another thing is the possibilities to tap out data and information from the networks, leading to a lot of possibilities in the analytics space, and also in terms of automating things through, for example, AI type of technology. And then there's also possibility to, we're meeting up as kind of connectivity and telco industry with the cloud capabilities. And I guess Stig will touch about a lot about on that then, on where you have the in the long run you will get the possibility to distribute your compute power and the related information that you're handling to that out in the network or in different layers in the geography, everything from in local entities or offices to local data centers, to telco data centers, to these giant cloud data centers. And that's a development that's currently ongoing and starts with the role of networks. And that then leads to if you use the 5G network or mobile network infrastructures, it has up till today been a more or less a best effort type of data access. And the 5G, depending on how you build the network and implement the network, you get different capabilities and spans and intervals of all these new capabilities that you see on the right side of this slide. Different data rates, different capacities, different real time, etc., etc. And here is also a reason for us to work close with developers from other industries to understand what are the requirements in different geographies for different types of services, so that we can assure that you get the right capabilities where it is needed. And just to give an example, that there are so many different use cases with different requirements that we need to meet up with. And then this is an example of a harbor where there's everything then from things coming in and out, requiring mobility, passing by in terms of transportation, to different types of control and inspection types of services, and maybe not alarm sensors, something that is needed in terms of that is more linked to kind of low power, low energy, low bitrate types of connectivity services. And then even if it's not mentioned in this slide, there's a small drone in this flying over for example, then transmitting high quality video for different types of inspections. And that always puts a lot of different requirements on the 5G connectivity. And in order for us to be able to guarantee a certain SLA or a certain quality of the services, we are starting in confined areas. We start in the mines, like 5 very closed environments, moving out to more public spaces now in terms of enterprise premises, factories, to harbors, and then in the end out in public environments along, for example, in roads and railways, to meet up with different types of service requirements. In order to do that, we try to we have different types of offerings and ways of working, either in as services or as in terms of innovation and development corporations, where kind of on top of what you get from the public network, we have the possibility, and you see that it also stands 4G here, in terms of 4G and 5G, different variants depending on different needs, where we can meet up depending on the kind of overlaid services are working and performing and the needs. And I'm sure this will kind of be packaged in different ways along the way, but we start in this way in order to meet there's also in order to meet up with requirements. And you can also work with combinations of this. So we have dedicated 5G innovation networks, which is not commercial environments as such, but it's for trials, which are like our target there is to be kind of 2 to 3 years ahead of the what we have in the public networks in terms of different types of functionalities and services. into the more state-of-the-art as parts of the public network 5G applications, as you see as the number 1 and 4 here. And with this, I want to hand over to Thomas, which will talk then a bit about how we're doing stuff then based on these structures and different ways of working.
Yeah, thanks, Mats. And as Mats mentioned, a lot of the case that's been up to now has been within confined areas. So here's a typical example of how we and Ericsson works together with Volvo Construction Equipment at their test site in Eskilstuna. And at that place, we have deployed a public network or with dedicated coverage, but we have also a private 5G innovation network at this particular test site. And even more or even better from a 5G standpoint, not only do we provide a non-standalone network, we also upgraded that network nowadays to a pure 5G standalone network. So the thing about this is for Volvo, they can start their development, they can start their testing at a 5G standalone point and then move that into an LTE or to a more public type of network, or vice versa. They have something that they run today at LTE or at 4G, and they want to test if it makes sense to change to a 5G standalone kind of environment and solution, and that could be done then because we have deployed it in this way. We've been running a Vinnova, or rather Drive Sweden, founded project lately together with the Ericsson guys and Volvo to try to find out the purpose or the purpose behind that project is how can we combine the knowledge and the resources and the assets from the automotive, or in this case the construction equipment industry, together with the telco industry, and what do we get out of such a cooperation. And this is pretty much, and Stig going to talk a lot about this, or a lot, but more about this. This is what it pretty much ended up in, how we can build a digital twin of that physical test arena, and how can we follow and how can we run the data from the fleet together with the data from the network, so we can combine these and see that at this particular place, at this physical point at the test bed, it's not possible to run autonomous. We need to run it teleoperated or vice versa. So it's a mix of what we get out of the fleet management and what we get out of the network management combined in one tool and in one view that we definitely think is going to be something to use even in other cases. Typical, as Mats said, next step from being totally confined or totally controlled by a certain customer or a certain site owner could be ports of different kinds, so whether it's airports or ports or harbors. And in cases like this, we need to take into consideration that everyone is not the customer. Looking at the port of Gothenburg, there's a lot of stakeholders at that port. How can we use that? There's some kind of semi or hybrid between totally dedicated, totally confined area with the public part, and what can we bring with us from the confined part into the harbor? And one of the harbor's most sensible part is that soft people and hard machines is moving in the same area, and of course we want to avoid these two to bump into each other and create accidents. Taking that to the next step, you probably heard about the project called 5G Rides. He's going to tell you a lot about this as well, using everything we learned from the confined part and everything we learned from that hybrid part and bringing that to a public kind of solution or public kind of case. And in this particular case, we didn't transport rocks and stones. In this case, we did transport the Prince of Sweden, Daniel, at a typical case that we did run at Djurgården. And once again, we use pretty much the same tools and the same learnings that we need to combine the fleet and the network. Oh shit, was animated. And sorry, I did see now that this is in Sweden. And this is how we use this 5G ride first example and climb up in this evolution stair to try to get to that final point where everything is done in a public urban setup and totally autonomous or teleoperated. Because it's pretty much the same thing, no matter if you're running it at the confined area or you run it in the public area. You need, of course, you have to have your fleet. It needs to be connected. You need to have cellular connectivity or a network that is capable of taking care of all these needs that comes from the fleet. And you need to have services that could be provided out to the fleet and also supervised or managed one way or the other. Must touch upon it. We can run this from a public network point of view, but we can also run it from a innovation network point of view when we need to do or want to do stuff that's not possible at this time when it comes to the public network. And this is absolutely not pre-information anymore. This is actually what is possible to do. We could share these two kind of core networks in the same public or in the same access network. So you as a customer could have a public network and an innovation network working at the same radio network at your sites. That's pretty much for me. Stig, do you want to grab and have the last 10-12 minutes to tell us more about what happened in the area of the test bed in Eskilstuna? You have the permission to share, Steve.
Can you see my?
Oh, we see this good.
Okay, everyone. My name is Stig Persson. I'm working for Ericsson. I have a task then to work on to create the test bed to help Ericsson's customers as well as in this for Sweden, also helping some of the industry companies or companies in Sweden. And my task then is then to build prototypes and so on for our customers. And if I start here just to put in a perspective, then before we had the corona, then it was around 7,000 customers then from politicians up to all the normal customers that was visiting us in Kista, and around 65,000 visitors. Based on that, we have to show that we are present in 185 countries. We need to show and understand that we understand end user cases or use cases. So that is my task then, to build prototypes for test beds. So I have built up test beds up in Kista, as we are 12,000 employees in Kista. But I'm also connecting my test beds then to Telia's then, so we can work and cooperating then to helping different type of customers in the region where Telia are present. Mostly we are helping each other then for the Swedish market. And if we talk about 5G and so on, you know that it's in the Mats slides and so on, and also in Thomas slides, it's a lot to talk about speed and so on. But we built the test networks then, but then 5G is the first time then when it's focused to be focused on enterprises. we have talked a lot the last 5, 6, 7 years about digital transformation, and that has been the input into the creation of the 5G. The first 4 versions was then to satisfy the internet evolution as well as the consumer. But this 5G is the first version or system that will address a lot more than on the enterprise side. And key for that then is it will not be enough that, as Mats and Thomas has said, that it's just bandwidth. You need also application, and what are the benefits of the application the 5G can support. And that has been my task then, to try to explain that and do tests with internally in Ericsson as well, then with customer that belongs to Telia. And from that point then, so we also see that there is a need, and a lot bigger need nowadays than to build connections to ecosystem. So Telia or Ericsson, they can't do everything themselves. They need also to have a evolved ecosystem so that you can do great applications for your enterprise customers. So part of my work, I have created something called Innovation Cloud. That is a prototype test bed that can do a lot. Primarily focus is then to support IoT and real data management. So we can use the benefits that are in a 5G network, like low latency and high availability. And that I have used then to create different type of use cases to help customers. And part of the things that are, if you said that this session workshop was about transport and logistics, so we have used the functions in the 5G networks then to develop sub-modules that can do route planning for a fleet, doing geofencing to have a geographical area that shows specific characteristics. We have also developed like vulnerable road user protection, so like in the transport sector, so a driver of a truck or a bus can be warned if they are a pedestrian or a bicyclist coming closer to that vehicle. We also can do quality of services in the 5G network. So what quality of service, then if you have a request or a need for like a high bandwidth video with guaranteed quality, then we can provide that via the 5G network. One part of it that also is developed in the 5G network is the positioning things with something called RTK, that is a complement to the traditional GNSS system. And that information will be distributed in the mobile network also going forward. And here then just to give an example, today when the GPS system was created back in '84 by Ronald Reagan's administration, then it had like 10-15 meters resolution then, and then it was a military version that had 6 meters. Now with the complementary RTK functionality, then we can go to sub-decimeter levels. So one example, together with Telia, then we have tested then together with the Västerviks Sjöräddningssällskap that we can have a resolution of 1 centimeters when we are on the sea and so on. But I see in my tests that 5-6 centimeters is the normal case when you are on land. We also saw that one of the things then to strengthen the transport area is to do some teleoperation, remote driving or remote operation. There is a lot of use cases asking for remote handling. Based on that, we took some standard software or functionality like something called WebRTC that is doing real-time communication over a traditional web page. Together with that, then we have created a control tower concept that we inherit from the airline industry. And with that, we can remotely control external vehicles and so on. Part of that, we have also seen that what we talk about cyber physical system and digital twins, we have also seen that how we can use the 5G network then to build digital twin application to steer and remote control different type of entities. And a really good example of this, there is a lot of efforts to do things then with self-driving cars and trucks and so on. But one of the companies, a startup in Sweden, then Eindrive, they have been focusing a lot more short term than to use teleoperation as the key differentiator than towards other players like that are doing trucks and heavy load machines then. And they see that the 5G and remote operation is the key in their view to a value proposition. It's not to create a self-driving truck itself, it's the possibility to remotely operate and handling the assets from a remote site. Then I think I will have, this is my last slide, so just to show that we talk about cyber physical system and that the digital world is going together with the analog or real world. So here is an example that Thomas also pointed out, that we created a remote operation of some heavy truck, heavy vehicles then in Eskilstuna. So this is just a showcase. Of course, what is happening? The pictures can be better, but so they are not the best high resolution, but it's giving a perspective. Here we're running a drone then that is taking an overview of the industry campus in Eskilstuna. And we also see a lot of requests, for instance, that you're running a drone then and then you're shifting the session over to a fixed vehicle like a fire truck or other type of vehicles, and so you can have combination. And we see also a lot of combination requests to have drones then delivering boxes out to the end customers then, and then you are running it the van in a traditional way. And we have now, for instance, also setting up testings then with delivery robots then both in Gothenburg and in Stockholm then to really see how we can have small delivery robots using 5G then to deliver different type of goods. And also there is a lot of requests from logistics companies to do combined services with drone delivering the boxes the last mile, and then the truck can be remotely handled in some areas. I think this was my last slide, Thomas, so I stop here.
Thanks, Stig.
Yeah.
You want to finish up, Mats?
Finishing up, I think what we tried to show was how the kind of big infrastructure rollout of 5G now that is kind of public communicated is linked to different types of innovation, types of corporations that we have, and how we can work with us, both Telia and Ericsson. And then Stig shows some really concrete examples that is coming out of it. And this is a world now being created, which will be a long journey. It will be a journey of, I think, we see probably kind of we are sorting out stuff coming now, coming later in a, as I said, a bit more than a 5-year perspective now. And I think as there are a lot of players that are working together in order to create these ecosystems, there is this, we need to find a common pace with different types of industries, etc. I hope it was understandable. Are there some questions? Either crystal clear or totally ununderstandable, non-understandable.
Silent questions. You can figure them out yourself.
Now you have the contact details to Telia and Ericsson here. So please challenge my colleagues here with questions afterwards, or also with use cases. I think would be interesting.
Fagerholt here. I have a question regarding the spectrum situation in Sweden and the Nordic countries. Is it still going very slow to free up spectrum, or or to reform old spectrum? And what do you think about the millimeter wave? When will that come?
I can't say anything around the millimeter wave, but in the more mid-band and lower band spectrum area, we have been very frustrated that it's been so slow, the deployment of spectrum in Sweden, both in terms of the public spectrum that we as operators are buying and the private spectrum that is now starting to loosen up or be loosed up. I think regarding the public spectrum, that has been sorted out now, and that's why we so clearly communicate and have started bigger rollouts, because we couldn't do that before. I think that's clear. We have a clear path now how we're going to upgrade the current 4G networks to be 5G capable. Regarding private spectrum, it's a bit complicated process. We're trying to tap into it as Telia, and we're more than happy to collaborate with different players having private spectrum, getting private spectrum. We're not sure if we're going to get it as well, or if it's kind of the landowner that's going to get it. It will be a bit fussy in that area, but I think it's not on the regulator side. It's more on to find an alignment how to do this. Regarding millimeters wave, I don't have it, at least not top of my head. There's probably a Telia view on it, but I don't have it in my here and now. But we are catching up where we were falling a bit behind because of the spectrum allocation now, and we are quite quick as a rather small country in a big world to get to act together, and together with Ericsson and Nokia in our footprint, we catch up quickly, I would say.
Yep.
I see that we have a lot of presence from Trafikverket in this webinar, and it's I'm very happy for that interest. And I'm thinking from one of the last the drone image you showed, Stig, some comments perhaps from Trafikverket and also from Telia and Ericsson, if drones for traffic management, traffic overview is discussed or used. I think to remember that Anders Fagerholt sent a video some years back of a drone being sent out to investigate on an accident area, but that was perhaps a police application.
If I start to answer then, we have a early adopter program. One of the innovation areas that we are driving is around drones, and we have a early adopter program for drone services in a collaboration with, for example, Ericsson as well as the main partner, and that's created for inspection, safe inspection of skyddsobjekt. I don't know the word in English. Protected areas or military protected areas, for example, the nuclear power plants, and how to do that securely. That we work together with among Vattenfall with. And so it's definitely, I think in the end, our part as telco operators will not be the drone service as such, but probably the transmission of secure transmission of video, and potentially also analytic of that video happening locally. There we have a big part in the service that we're creating.
Any comments from Trafikverket? I saw Biding and Palm and Svensk. Or all on mute.
Leo Svensk speaking. I know we have some pilots regarding drones in the Stockholm area and for traffic management, but that's about what I know. So I'm not the one to tell you that much about it. So, sorry for that. I don't know if Torbjörn or Magnus has more information about that pilot demonstration.
No, Magnus here. No, I don't know of any projects as such, but we have it in planning in the construction phase. We use that sometimes. Well, we use it in some extent today, but not very much.
Okay.
We are doing some work with Saab and Luftfartsverket how to define if it will be a lot of mass market for drones for box delivery by companies like PostNord and DHL and so on. And then the test bed that I have in Kista is one of the toughest area in Stockholm because it's in the in-flight sector, both to Bromma and Arlanda. So we have a real case so to test how good the accuracy and the availability for the service can be. So we are doing some work on that, supported by 5G.
Magnus here as well. I think we use it also for inspection of bridges and other inspection of our facilities. So that's our application right now.
And also that from the Telia side is, I think what we're aiming at is our role in beyond the line of sight flying of drones, and what is our part and contribution into that. And I know that Luftfartsverket has got a directive, it's called directive from the government now to look into traffic management for drones, which will then happen. That they will start to launch initiatives during this year around it. So I think a lot will start to happen around drones, especially now what's happened the last days here with the drones flying around a bit uncontrolled.
Yeah. No, and that is quite new. Then I think it's just 3 weeks old. So we are also in the project I'm part of the running into the traffic management challenge. So that's good that Luftfartsverket has got that task to get the drones under control. But at least better know where they maybe can be.
All right. Other questions to the 5G people? Or everybody's eager to jump ahead to CES 2022?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. But as you said, Jenny, now the contacts are out there, and I guess it's just to connect if you have other questions. So I guess it's over to Petter.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So, hi, everyone. My name is Petter. For some reason, I can't see my own face. That's good to know that I'm in camera. I am in camera. Okay, good. So my name is Petter. Know many of you. I work for HERE Technologies. I normally go to CES, and I offer myself to scout for Telematics Valley when I still were planning to go. I think now when we do the CES report, we found out that many companies closed their booth, and many people that planned to go to CES this year didn't. And I was one of those. Nevertheless, I think doing scouting this year was extremely, I wouldn't say easy, but a lot was available, or even more almost available than we expected, due to the fact that companies planned for full CS and then ended up in virtual CS. So you can see on the pictures here, you can see one example of what it could look like with pretty empty space. It was obviously not that empty all the time. The building with the construction site is from the 22nd of December. The White House in the middle is our booth, and we're still building it the 22nd of December and spending millions of euros of this. And then suddenly, due to COVID, we had to stop. Some about the trends. I will do my presentation in the way that we'll talk a little bit about the event. What is the event and how can it help? Then I will go a little bit into some automakers that I found very, very visible, and then some trends that I myself identified. And then, of course, everyone has to understand that I'm from the location industry. I'm from automotive. I'm also Swedish, as I'm obviously looking more into Volvo, Polestar, and Volta. Then I look into other brands from other regions. Don't hesitate to interrupt if you want to throw in a comment, if you see something that you don't agree to, if you ask why didn't you see this trend, whatever. 5G, for example, is kind of very well integrated today. In general, drones that we talked about a few minutes ago was not that visible this year. It's been previous years. Maybe that market starts to become a little bit mature, at least in terms of technology. But what we saw was that automotive is still very, very important. So automotive has kind of grown at CES the last years, not the amount of car makers going there, but the amount of car makers planning their news and releasing their news at CES, even if they maybe not even go themselves. Now this year, I felt that it was more news about commercial vehicles. There's no absolute truth in anything of these things that I say today. It's more like my scouting that you have to listen to. I hope it's useful anyway. But there was a lot of focus on commercial vehicles this year, more I would say than the previous years. Last year was digital as well. The years before I've been there myself, and I haven't seen that much of commercial before. It was a little bit more right now, it's the right time to move now than it's been previous years. I think it's been a lot of like really cool concept that we will or maybe see one day. And now it was more like technology that you can understand, that you can really take to your heart, things that has improved, etc. So it was a little bit more like, okay, what can we use 2022 when we do business, rather than what will the society look like 2030? So it was a little bit more right now. Already mentioned that many companies planned to go all in, but then canceled last minute. And I think one good thing with that is that, like I said before, that companies were really prepared. Obviously, the difficult thing was that even if you would have traveled there, you would not have been able to meet with the maybe most important, or at least many of the most important players. So the guys who went there couldn't get the full experience, and us didn't go and only used our virtual pass didn't get the full experience either. So yeah, it is what it is. A lot of material is available on YouTube today. So if you are interested in keynotes and most important news, there's a lot of summaries, very good podcast, full keynotes on YouTube, etc. And I really recommend you to search, UCES 2022 and the topics you are interested in and the brands you are interested in, and dig into it a bit if you haven't done it already, because it's good material. People have spent a lot of energy to get it there. Yeah, there was some numbers. The numbers from in the top right corner is from 2019 to today. So much smaller, but that of course has to do mainly with COVID. Okay. So here you have some colorful pictures of some brands that I personally found very interesting, and they launched all of them. They launched some nice stuff. I let Polestar represent the Geely Group, actually Seeker, the sister brand, and Volvo was also very visible. And I think what was good news for us Volvo friends was that you could see pictures of Volvos and Polestars all over the place, right? So there was a lot of like small companies there presenting their ideas, and then they had kind of a picture of a Polestar to show their solutions are for EVs, right? Like charging stations or whatever. So a few years ago, it was extremely hot. It was Tesla all over in the same way, but I think it was a lot of Polestar now, and that was really great to see. Also, obviously, there was some strange things here where we had Seeker going Mobileye and Volvo going Qualcomm, things that we want to understand in this industry, and that has been discussed a lot. It was discussed a lot about the LiDAR launch planned this year in California for level 3 driving, as Volvo cars previously said that they will never go for level 3. And also as there seems to be no permits for it. So it was a lot of like discussion, what is this? Is this marketing or will it happen? And again, for us working close to Volvo, we are of course very interested in this. But it was a good marketing buzz here. GM, they came with their competitor to the Ford 150. The Rivian. I think the GM Silverado has actually made some very negative impact on the Rivian stock. And what differs Silverado from other trucks is that it really has good performance. It's really built as an EV car from the beginning. So expensive, yes, but I think Americans will like this, and it's not only me thinking that. VinFast, Vietnamese car maker, have five cars lined up. At least 2 of them will go to the European market already 2022. So all of us that looked into the impact of SAIC and MG 2021, of course, wonders how much market share will these new guys. And let us see that VinFast only represent one of many of these new brands, and you all know that. BMW, most fun from BMW was obviously that they had a car on the show that could change colors, or at least grayscale, so it could go from white to black. And it's more or less the same technology that is used in these kind of reading pads like Kindles and stuff. I don't have details about that, but that's pretty cool. Breathe. Any questions so far?
I think perhaps for Trafikverket, it should be this color changing depending on stress levels in the traffic system. That should be a new regulation from Trafikverket. I don't know.
Yeah, or like Jenny said yesterday when we talked, that what about bank robbers, right? They drive away in a black car and 2 seconds later it's white or red maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next car on my list is the Fisker. So this kind of Danish project, and maybe the most important thing here was that it was kind of leverage for Magna, because it's more or less Magna building that car, and it means that also, of course, other people, that it's easier and easier to go to the market, like sign up with someone that want to build your car, and then you have companies like Magna that really can build the entire car. And you do the branding, and you do the selling, and you do all these kind of things. You do the designing maybe. So Fisker Ocean is now available. They have a solar roof. So they had some kind of CS gadget news that they showed. Want to be extremely environmental and cool and kind of for beach people. Sony is similar. Sony was at CS 2022. I was a little bit involved in that launch at that time. It was fascinating. They had a fantastic car, and a lot of people asked themselves, will this now happen? Will we have Sony cars on the streets? This is now 2 years ago, and now they launched an even better car. Really nice, fantastic car in many ways. And the industry still asks if Sony is just using this to show that they can build everything around mobility solutions. If they can build a car, they build one car only to prove that they have the capability, but then they focus on the Sony mobility instead. So that's, I would say maybe that's probable. Anyway, that was a trend. People were talking about it. Volta, Swedish-British, very interesting electrical truck concept. Launched some news at CS. I think they should have been there as speakers. I don't think they were in the end physically. I actually don't know, but it's nice to see. Also, again, for us Gothenburgers, to see that this works. Stellantis had some interesting news, especially regarding collaboration with Amazon, and they also launched new EVs. And then most interesting, I would say, from my perspective, was the Daimler Daimler launched this. I guess most of you have seen it, right? The EQXX is totally fantastic car, and they had a very long range, so 1,000 kilometers on one charge, and the drag coefficient of 0.17, which they now then start to talk about as a benchmark. And I think you can go and search on your coefficients for your cars and see how well it goes towards this 0.17. And Mercedes-Benz, in addition to this beautiful car, they also talked a lot about the L3, so self-driving level L3 is available this year in Germany, by that in Europe. So Germany was out first, and that was the big thing for Mercedes-Benz. We're running a little bit out of time. We'll have a few minutes left. So I'll try to go through this EV, of course. I just kind of put out some trends here. And let me say that as we only have a few more minutes, I mean, many of us knows each other, so we can always continue this discussion separately if you want. The efficiency was everywhere. It was not only like this Mercedes story, but it was also a lot about performance per watt. How do we now build cars that consume less energy and thereby increase the range? Solar panel is, of course, also an alternative for some countries. So it was a lot about efficiency down to the chipsets. There was a lot about EV, so EV cars, but also charging stations and everything around it, of course. The comeback of traditional OEMs through EV, that it took some time. We know that Volvo was very quick, but now we also see the other, let's say, a bit slower car manufacturers stepping into the EV, and they want, of course, to show why they are the best at a fair like CS. Software-defined cars is a super strong trend, extremely strong. We have seen it over a few years with OTA and so, but OTA is now for everyone. OTA is not something fancy. It's totally crucial. And software architectures in the vehicle, we see that more and more. And by that, we see these kind of traditional companies like Qualcomm that has been working a lot, and AMD and others that have been, Intel working a lot in gaming and PC industry, and how their chipsets and how they goes in and want to take a bigger and bigger role in ADAS topics and or other core automotive topics. Delivery and off-road robotics, last mile delivery, different things. John Deere, what was the name of that tractor? Agriculture vehicle. They were out driving on fields with self-driving, and we also have seen this from Conti and ZF and similar companies before, but this is big. LiDARs for everyone means that we now have so many LiDAR companies all over the world, right? And LiDAR start to become very, very common in also volume cars. Cost goes down, and companies starts to and it's nice to see that Volvo has been leading this transformation for a while, and now is in a very good position for that, probably. Back to ADAS means that all these investments for totally autonomous vehicles continue to kind of transfer into level, what we call level 2 plus, and level 3. So we see a lot of investments going from this super fancy, in the future concept into more like, hey, help me to park my car, help me to drive through traffic, help me to drive on highways, with these kind of different pilot systems, which is normally in the level 3 scope. And I personally believe we'll see a lot of this 2022. And then finally, entertainment. CS is a lot about gadgets. Gadgets meets cars. So it was a lot of augmented reality, cinema experiences, YouTube, Amazon Alexa, a lot of kind of entertainment and that kind of integrations into the vehicles. And there we have 1 minute for questions. Was it a useful overview? Let me ask you that.
Hey, yeah, we are still. I'd like to ask a question.
Yes.
If that's okay. My name is Karen Eriksson. I work at Business Sweden, Göteborg, and I work with the finance and venture capital industry. I wonder whether there was something about health tech or safety.
Safety, yes. I mean, there was a lot on safety, a lot around also entertainment systems, how the entertainment systems in the vehicle, you know, you also use the cameras to see your surroundings. Like people ask yourself, now if you stuff your car with so many lidars and you still keep the 8 cameras, what will you use it for? And the impression is that these kind of systems will now also, of course, be used a lot to increase safety. When it comes to health tech, I must admit, I don't know. I know from when I've been walking around at CES, there is always a lot of health tech. And I think if you dig down yourself, if you do your own scouting and you do this now, because it's still not too late, I think you will find a lot of tracks. But I went very, you know, as I was not there in person, I went all in for automotive, so I didn't look at it. Yeah.
But the reason for asking is that it is said that health tech is now becoming more and more important within mobility, and but it's called safety. But it's actually.
And this was what you are now also working at Volvo Innovation, right? Said about the colors of the BMW and stress levels, and you can use Garmin's and other concepts to actually measure stress levels and fuse that information. So, I mean, it definitely fits, and we actually have this cluster in Gothenburg as well, right? The health care cluster, and I think this cluster and us, Telematics Valley, should actually try to meet 2022. That's my personal opinion, but I think this industry should meet now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And anything else before we wrap up? No? But if so, then Johan, back to you.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking smart home. You mentioned Alexa and stuff, but I haven't heard so many comments on the smart home being interconnected with the smart vehicle.
Yes, and your own company actually talked about that at CES. So that was also a talking point that if we would have had more time now, I would have digged a little bit more into that. But yes, we see this integration. It goes with the software-defined cars, and it goes with the entertainment that they meet. So I definitely see that's a way forward.
Mm.
And also the Stellantis Amazon, I mean, that's a pretty big one because Stellantis is so huge today. I mean, so crazily dominant in some segments. And when they go Amazon collaboration, I mean, I think we should expect to see more news coming out of that, and also kind of like a shift. Because they are also volume car production, right? So it's not only premium there, it's volume cars. And I think that would be extremely interesting to see how that goes.
Sounds good. All right, thank you, Petter. If there are no more questions, then I think we'll wrap up. We're a little bit over time. But thank you to everybody kind of for a good presentations and some discussion. Obviously, the lunch eating thing will not be easy to do, and the mingling and networking, that's something that we'll have to look forward to till next time. And perhaps we can work with that within Telematics Valley to see if we can set up where we have been discussing smaller workshop initiatives where we hopefully could have more interactions, more of a kind of digital roundtable stuff. But otherwise, just a big thanks to Ericsson and Telia and to here. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Have a nice lunch.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye bye.